We started off our 18-day trip in Heidelberg, Germany. We flew pretty late in the evening from Stansted Airport and arrived at night time at Frankfurt. We took a midnight bus from Frankfurt Airport through to Heidelberg, where we finally got to our place, Villa Mastal.
So we have finally got to Villa Mastal. It's 3 in the morning. It was a very, very long bus ride, of which neither of us got very much sleep. But the room is amazing, and just, it's so nice to be somewhere where I know I can just get straight into bed and go to sleep.
We stayed across the road from the Heidelberg synagogue. Unfortunately, this was burnt down by Nazi stormtroopers during the war. Although Heidelberg now has a new synagogue that has been rebuilt in a different location, white bricks have been used to show the location of the previous synagogue so that we can always remember what happened. The idea is to remember and learn from our mistakes and make sure that this never happens again in the future. We spent the day walking through the streets of Heidelberg, popping into shops and coffee shops, art galleries and such. The city itself is pretty cool. It's quite small. You can walk the length of the main street in maybe 20 minutes, but there's lots to see and do. Heidelberg Castle is a must. There is a really quick and easy cable car to get you up to the top, and the view is so worth it. I highly recommend taking your camera if you're going to go up to the top of the castle, because you can see across the whole of Heidelberg and beyond, and it is pretty spectacular. We then went on an hour-long tour with the most amazing tour guide who was full of odd facts. He gave us a great tour of the entire castle. We got to see some of the older parts, 15th and 16th century, and some of the more newer and reconstructed parts, and we got to learn a little bit of how Heidelberg relates to the English royalty, including how it relates to Elizabeth Stuart. We then ventured on down to the winery, which hosts one of the largest wine barrels I have ever seen, and we enjoyed a lovely lunch. We then headed back on into Heidelberg town, and what better to top off a lovely lunch than with some cake. One of my favourite hobbies is to find the nearest church, because they tend to be the places that holds on to and looks after its artwork, and you can find some of the most spectacular pieces inside of churches. We decided to have a couple of drinks in our room while watching the sunset from our balcony before heading back into Heidelberg town for dinner. We ended up taking some advice from TripAdvisor and going to the #1 rated restaurant, which happened to be a local schnitzel house. It was spectacular. The amazing part was that you had to share a very long table with a couple of different families and couples, which meant that you got to speak to people from all walks of life. We had Americans and Germans on our table, and it was awesome. We stopped for a quick nightcap before heading back to our hotel and taking a walk along the water. The next day we headed to Strasbourg. Look out for that video next week. You know what to do if you enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up and remember to subscribe to my channel to make sure you don't miss any of my other videos.